Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So let's get hacking.
My first time booking, it took me an hour and a half on the phone with the guy to book it. But yeah, you have to have all your segments ready, all your flights ready. And so you just kind of read it off, they search for it, and then they book it over the phone for you. And so yeah, I mean, that's essentially an overview of the process of finding availability for all your legs, transferring the points, hope your availability sticks, and then calling in to book the around the world ticket.
Hello, travel hackers. You just heard a clip from Max Doe with Max Miles Points. Max is known for creating some of the best graphics that break down points and miles concepts into easy-to-understand 10-slide Instagram posts. If you have ever thought that learning travel hacking was overwhelming and you're not even sure where to start, I highly recommend a visit to Max's Instagram page. In this episode, Max and I discuss how he was able to fly to 8 destinations around the world in business class for only 125,000 points, which is basically just 1 or 2 sign-up bonuses. This amazing redemption also includes the story of Max's proposal to his wife at the Maha luxury desert resort in Dubai, a hotel that typically goes for more than $1,000 per night. Everyone who's looking for proposal ideas, please grab a pen and take some notes, or maybe even spend your next date night listening to this podcast episode with your significant other. Max also talks about how your ability to travel hack is very much dependent on how much you know. And as you've heard me say before, the best way to effectively absorb a bunch of points and miles information quickly is to talk with others in the community. If you're interested in learning more about how to book incredible trips like Max's, please come join one of our Geobreeze Travel Podcast off-air hangouts. We invite travel hackers of all expertise levels to hang out, ask questions, and offer advice with other points and miles enthusiasts. The link to sign up for the next one is at geobreezetravel.com/hangouts. And now, on with the show. Hey, Max, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to interview with me again. This is actually our second time recording this because I had a coughing fit and died, and Max's AirPod Pros were not cooperating with us. So thank you so much for doing this interview again.
Of course. Happy to do it.
Cool. So before we jump into all of the different details with your points and miles lifestyle, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the game of points and miles?
So I got into the game of points and miles by following theflightdeal.com. And it was just a random day where I was just looking for cheap flights and scrolling through my Twitter feed and searching around online. I found theflightdeal.com. And I followed them, turned on the notifications for their tweets and stuff on their flight deals. So they have flight deals across the U.S. from the major cities. And so it started from there. There was a deal to Hawaii for $500 from Chicago. And the deal was that with one flight and the American Airlines platinum status challenge, I could fly to Hawaii and then have platinum status. And so at the time, platinum status was the second highest status on American Airlines. And so for $500, getting the second highest status on American Airlines was a big deal. And so that was my first venture into travel hacking, and not points and miles related, but just paying cash for the ticket and then earning status for $500. And so after that, I did a bunch of research and figured out that, why pay $500 when I can get the flight for almost free? And so that's where I rabbit hole of miles and points, reading a bunch of blogs, reading a bunch of online stuff, following a bunch of people on Twitter. And that's how I kind of get started in the points and miles world.
What was your first card?
My first card was the American Airlines City card. And so at that time, I was flying a lot. I'm originally from Southern California, but I was working in Chicago. And so I was flying a lot back and forth between Chicago and Southern California. And so naturally got the American Airlines card. And that's why I was really set on getting American Airlines status. So that's why I did the status challenge and then also bought this deal to get platinum status.
Nice. And so there are generally 2 different approaches that people have when they start getting into points and miles. There are the people who do all the research and they're like, oh, I'm going to dip my foot in a little bit, take this a little bit slow because it could all blow up on me. And then there are the people who are like, I'm going to apply for 3 cards at a time, 12 times in my first year. Which group do you fall into?
I definitely took it a little bit easy at first. And so very cautious of just getting the airline card first and then venturing over into a lot of people into the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. And then it kind of took off from there. And so Chase Sapphire Preferred and then Chase Freedom and then Chase Freedom Unlimited and then figuring out how I can get Amex points. But I definitely took it slow at first. First couple of years was just 2 cards. And then after I got the hang of things with the Chase Sapphire Preferred, then kind of jumped into diversifying into American Express and then getting more Chase cards as well.
Nice. And how long ago was it that you originally got into the game?
This was in 2016 was when I took that flight to Hawaii. And yeah, it's a couple of years ago.
And how many cards do you have now?
That is a good question. Me and my fiance, we were very strategic on what cards we get, trying to avoid 524. And so we alternate, I think between both of us, and maybe we have maybe 11 or 12, not as many as compared to a lot of people in the hobby, but I think we're pretty good at maximizing every single dollar we spend. And so that's how we gain or get all of our points. Obviously the sign up bonuses as well, but I pride myself on not churning cards, but more using or getting the most out of what we have or what we currently have.
Makes sense. And so what's your general strategic approach whenever you see a new offer that comes up online? How do you decide, oh yes, this one's for me, I should jump on it, versus I should let this one pass, I gotta save my 5/24 slots?
That is a good question. I think the way we prioritize what cards we want or get is based on what we're trying to achieve. And so a lot of the times for Chase cards, if we're looking to stay in a Hyatt hotel a lot for the next year or something, and then a Chase bonus comes around, then we'll sign up for that card. Or if we're looking to use points on ANA, which Amex is only a transfer partner of ANA, then if Amex sign up bonus comes around, then we'll sign up for that card. But I mean, it depends. And so recently it's been kind of crazy, and we have a couple cards that were both well under 524. And so there's a couple cards that we picked up, and we have a good amount of minimum spend to hit in the next 3 to 6 months here. But yeah, it's usually prioritized based off of our travel goals and what we're trying to do with our points.
Makes sense. And so how do you optimize your spend? Do you just stick little labels on each card? Do you have a spreadsheet? Do you use any certain tools? And kind of as a corollary to that, are there any categories where you find you spend a lot more, and so there's certain cards that you're like, hey, if you're like me and you spend a lot in this category, definitely get these cards?
Yeah, to keep track of which card to use and where we spend our money, I don't know, just kind of wing it and keep it in my head and hope that I get it right 99% of the time. And for the most part, I mean, I get it right. And I'm especially careful on big purchases. And so if we're buying something that's like over $200 or $300 or something like that, then I'm pretty cautious of using the right card. But for the most part, I got it down, and my fiance too. And so we always tend to use the right cards. And sometimes once in a while, we make the mistake of using the wrong card at the wrong place, and we lose out on maybe a couple hundred points. But for the most part, pretty good with it. I know that some people put labels on their cards, and some people have cheat sheets in their wallets and stuff like that, but we're not so much. We don't do any of that. And we just kind of just keep it in our head and just.
Yeah. And you mentioned we get it right 99% of the time. And I know some people freak out when they're like, oh my God, that was not the optimal restaurant card. I lost out on 15 cents of points. Don't worry about it. Just move on. It's 15 cents. You'll make it back. It'll be fine. Some people are just so hung up on the mistakes, but with travel hacking, you just got to keep going with the flow.
Yeah, definitely. It's this happened the other day where I was going to go buy some boba, and it's the day before I downgraded my Chase Sapphire Reserve, and this place in particular doesn't take American Express cards, and so the Amex Gold was not an option. And I don't have the Chase Sapphire Reserve. I'm like, so I walked up to the counter. What card do I use? What card do I use? And I got a little flustered. And I was like, oh shoot, I don't have the Reserve anymore. And so we ended up using my fiance's Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is 2 times points. And then not realizing, I forgot that the Chase Freedom Unlimited, it was 3 times points now for dining, and so missed out on maybe 10 points there or something like that. But it was an interesting experience, and there were I guess haven't ran into that situation in a long time. But good thing it's a small purchase, and now it's stuck in my mind that the Chase Freedom Unlimited it has recently changed to 3x points, and so now I know better.
How much was boba? $10 total, right?
Yeah, $5, $10 or somewhere around there. Yeah, so it wasn't that many points.
So these are the kinds of things where I'm like, oh, just shake it off. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
you'll get it back in a different thing. All right. And then, so what's your normal day-to-day go-to card? Is it normally the Amex Gold whenever you have the option, or is it something else?
Yeah, the Amex Gold is my favorite card. It's just, I mean, dining and groceries is just way too easy to, and 4 times points, it's like easy to hit, to gather a lot of points on the Amex Gold, and it makes it relatively pretty simple to, it's whether pandemic or not, like you got to eat. And so whether you're ordering out or you're going to buy groceries and stuff like that, it's like you have to eat anyways. So it's easy to get those rack up points on the Amex Gold for sure.
Makes sense. All right, let's talk about your Instagram, because you have been dubbed the Points Professor. You have so much good like beginner information and even into like intermediate information on here's some different strategies, here's some promos that are going on. You are super quick to post any travel hacking news onto your posts and onto your stories. What are some of the sources that you use and that you follow every day so that you can stay on top of all of the travel hacking news?
I follow a lot of the main blogs that a lot of us do. And so Frequent Miler, 1 Mile at a Time, as well as the Points Guy. And the way that I kind of keep up with my news is that I turn on Twitter notifications. And so I follow the Boarding Area, which is, I guess, a conglomerate of a lot of the major Points and Miles blogs. And so I follow them and then turn on my Twitter notifications. And so some people probably think I'm pretty crazy, but I get a lot of notifications. And like in the morning when I wake up, that's 60 notifications. And I always go through them pretty quickly and just kind of skim through them, at least read the headlines so that I know what's going on. And then I don't particularly just read them on the spot, but just skim through them because it's good to know, be informed about all the deals that are happening and all the changes. And then I kind of go through those and then kind of bookmark the ones I want to read later and then jump back to them.
Nice. And so what's normally your turnaround time between seeing a cool headline and being like, I can make a professional graphic of this and 10 slides that somebody can swipe through on Instagram for the world to enjoy and share all over the place? What's that turnaround time? Because you are, I will repeat this again, very fast.
Turnaround time it's about an hour and a half, and depends on what it is. And there's a couple of things that are always reoccurring, where it's like airline waivers or something like that, or changes. Or I spend the most time just kind of going through the article and kind of cherry picking or picking out all the main points and all the main details, and kind of figuring out how I can lay it out in a 10 slide carousel on Instagram, and try to make it as simple as possible to understand and a quick read. Because like sometimes, we always don't have, it's like typically we don't have the time to read through a long blog during the day. And so I guess I kind of try and simplify things so that you don't have to read the blog and just kind of get the main points. And then if you want to read more or you want to learn more about it, then you can always go find a blog post about it and take 10 minutes to read it.
Yep. That's why I like podcasts too, is I don't have time to read full blogs. So I just listen to people telling me the travel hacking news of the day while I'm like making breakfast or putting away laundry or something like that. Mm-hmm. So very nice. And so I'm going to call it real life, like in our day jobs, you are actually a graphic designer by profession, which explains a lot.
Yeah, yes. So in my day job, I'm a multimedia graphics. And so anything graphics related, video, graphic design, web design, and everything I kind of work on. And so I have experience in that. That's why I'm able to kind of turn out these pretty quickly. The problem for me is that it's like in my mind, I want everything to be a masterpiece. And sometimes trying to get these things onto Instagram, it's like the challenge for me because I want to spend 2 or 3 hours on it to make it look good and also be informative. But over time, I've learned that just getting the information out there as quick, but also providing insights and being effective and providing good information is more beneficial than creating a 2 or 3 hour carousel masterpiece that looks amazing. But either way, I've tried to speed up my process here and hopefully one of these days be able to knock these things out in 30 minutes instead of an hour and a half.
As you're doing your day job and your different freelance gigs, is there any way that you can incorporate your travel hacking hobby into those aside from kind of incorporating your graphic design skills into travel hacking, are you able to get points and miles off of just your day-to-day?
Not particularly. And yeah, my day-to-day job does not require me to travel much. That's what you mean, right?
Either traveling or just, do you have any expenses that you can send over to clients that you're able to put on your credit card and then get reimbursed for or anything?
Yeah, unfortunately not. I wish though. I mean, I have friends where they're able to use their personal cards to buy corporate gifts and things like that, which I'm super jealous. And like they would get one card and hit the minimum spend in 2 days. And where me, like I have a corporate card, and so I'm forced to use the corporate card, and I only can use the corporate card for business travel and business expenses. And freelance is essentially the same. I mean, there's not many expenses regarding some of the freelance work I do. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that access to being able to put business expenses or freelance expenses on personal cards. And unlike some other people, like consultants are like, I have friends that are consultants that they rack up millions and millions of airline points and credit card points, and super jealous of those people.
Oh yeah. If you have one round trip flight per week and you are staying in hotels at least 50% of your life, like maybe more, 5 nights a week or so, then yeah, those points are going to add up a lot. It's one of those, I always think there's 3 routes to super boosting your travel hacking. You can either like work for somebody who like pays you to be a road warrior, or you can have some kind of side gig or business where maybe you're selling stuff on Etsy and you're buying a whole bunch of stuff and then reselling, or there's just like straight up hackety hacks where you are trading cards or anything else like that. And then there's also, I think, this understated world of travel hacking, which is just like being a normal person and just optimizing your daily spend, which as we scroll through a lot of the different travel hacking content that's on the internet, you always just see people sitting in first class flights and business class flights and all of these hotels in ways that aren't sustainable for most people. And I really like your account because it doesn't do that. It's just like good graphics that just explain stuff to people. And you know what Max is doing while he's making these? Sitting at home.
Yep. Yeah. I'm definitely in that normal people trying to maximize every single dollar that I'm spending and making sure that I get at least 4 times points on the boba that I get and not screwing up and getting just 2 times points. It's definitely fall into that normal category for sure.
Nice. And so as a completely normal human being, what's one of your favorite travel hacking redemptions that you've ever been able to get without being a road warrior, without having an Amazon store, without any of that? What's been your favorite?
So before I get into my favorite redemption, I'll tell you how I got these points. Like at my job for 3 years in a row, they had a Special Olympics auction, and there's a corporate account. This is when SVG was still around. And so there's a corporate account where they collect SVG points. And so for 3 years in a row, they auctioned off 100,000 SVG points at this Special Olympics auction at my work. And so the first year I screwed up and didn't realize the value of SVG points, because this is early on when I was just starting miles and points. And so I saw it there and I was like, oh, that seems pretty interesting. I don't know what SVG points are, and it's an auction that day. And I was like, I mean, $800-900 for 100,000 SVG points. That seems kind of expensive. I think I'll pass. And so going home and then just quickly Googling what SVG points are worth, I was like, oh no, I should have got those, because 100,000 SVG points is pretty hard to get. And so the following 2 years, I bought the SVG points, the 100,000 SVG points for each of the years. It was like $800-900 for that 100,000 SVG points. And it goes to a good cause too. I mean, it goes to Special Olympics. And so after those 2 years, I had 200,000 SVG points. And so going into my favorite redemption is a around the world trip that I took with me and my fiance. And so we went to 8 destinations and we used a lot of those SVG points. But like another crazy thing is like SVG merged with Marriott during that time. And so the 200,000 SVG points converted to 600,000 Marriott points. And so what we did was we transferred some of those Marriott points to ANA, and then we transferred some Amex points to ANA as well. And then we booked an around the world trip. Like I said, 8 destinations around the world, including like Paris, Santorini, Venice, Milan, Dubai, Seoul, and then Osaka. and Kyoto, and so then we flew back to the US. But yeah, a lot of those Marriott points went to a lot of the luxury collection Marriott hotels, as well as flying business class around the world, which is really awesome.
So for anybody who's not familiar with the SPG program, rest in peace, SPG, because it's so devalued now. But back in the day, it was close to 3 cents per point, each of these points worth. So for 100,000, $3,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you had 200,000 of these. So that's at least $6,000 worth of travel right there. And when you're transferring them to different partners like ANA, as you mentioned, you can get a lot more than just the normal stated value. And how much did you say you bought?
I got them for each set for $900. So yeah, 100,000 was $900 and the other 100,000 was $900.
Yeah. So most of the time it is not a good idea to buy points, but this is one of those times. That is a really good buy
for sure.
For those points. All right. So walk us through this around the world trip. How do you plan for it? How long does it take? Do you plan each segment separately? Do you have to do it all at once and it has to just all fit together magically?
Yeah. So I'll try to explain it in a easy to follow 10 carousel podcast format for our listeners to understand and see if I can make it as simple as possible. And so the way that I went about this was transferring American Express points to ANA. And so to book the around the world ticket, you could do it in economy, you could do it in business, you could do it in first. But there's a sweet spot where it's kind of like 125,000 points will get you around the world, and you can fly, I think, up to 22,000 miles, I believe. I have to double check that. But so essentially you can fly around the world for 125,000 miles, or 125,000 ANA miles, 8 destinations, 12 legs. And so since it's ANA, it has to be Star Alliance. And the booking process is a little tricky because you have to find availability, all the legs that you want. And so that means using Expert Flyer, using United.com, or using ANA's own search feature to kind of search through and find all the legs, all the segments of your ticket. So that means like if you want to fly from LA to Japan to Dubai to Europe and then Europe back to the US, you have to find all of those and they have to be available. And so that's the tricky part, is that finding availability can be tough. And then if you don't do it far in advance, then obviously, everybody knows that the closer to the travel date, the harder it is to find availability. So yeah, that's the first big hurdle, is finding availability. And then after you find availability, you transfer your points. And American Express transfer to ANA, it takes usually like 2 to 3 days, sometimes 4 days to transfer. And so that's the tricky part, is that during that transfer time, your availability can disappear and you would have to kind of research for all the segments again. And so that's not ideal. ANA in some cases can put your tickets on hold. So you can call in, put your tickets on hold, but it's not guaranteed. It doesn't happen in all cases, depending on what airlines you fly. And so after you transfer, then you have to call in, you have to book. And so my first time booking, it took me an hour and a half on the phone with the guy to book it. But yeah, you have to have all your segments ready, all your flights ready. And so you just kind of read it off, they search for it, and then they book it over the phone for you. And yeah, that's essentially an overview of the process of finding availability for all your legs, transferring the points, hope your availability sticks, and then calling in to book the around the world ticket.
Are these around the world tickets something that the customer service representatives are pretty familiar with? Or when you were doing this, were they just like...
They're pretty familiar with it. And so the best part about ANA is that you call during business hours, you get a US-based ANA representative. And you tell them around the world, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, name off all your flights that you want, and then I can search them. They put you on hold for 15 minutes, they search, and then they come back telling you yes or no, or it violates this rule, or things like that. And so they're pretty well versed in it, and they have some of the best phone reps out there.
As you're flying around the world, how long did this take, this entire trip?
So we took off of work for 3 weeks and just went around the world for 3 weeks. So first stop, we actually started our trip in Montreal. And so we had a bi-positioning flight from LA to Montreal, but we started in Montreal and then flew from Montreal to Paris, and then Paris to Venice, and then Venice to Santorini. And then I think from Santorini, we went to Dubai, and then Dubai over to Japan for a couple of days, and then from Japan went to Seoul for a couple of days, and then
nice. And then for each one of these, are you also covering the hotel?
Yeah. So this trip, we cashed in over, I think, close to 1 million points between Marriott points and Amex points. We cashed in over 1 million points. It's like I started this in 2016 and kind of had a bunch of goals set, but throughout the following years, I kind of reached all those goals and then had this bunch of points left over. And so plus the purchase SPG points from the Special Olympics auction also helped a lot too. And yeah, we redeemed almost 1 million points and kind of stayed in some of the awesome, like some of the most awesome Marriott hotels, like Al Mahal in Dubai, Grady Palace in Venice, and then Mystique in Santorini. And so kind of splurged quite a bit on points, and then just got rid of, all of my Marriott points during the trip, and that covered most of the hotels that we stayed in during the trip.
Nice. And one of the most memorable things on this trip was you actually proposed to your fiance on this trip.
She knew it was going to happen on the trip, but the funny thing is that she thought it was going to happen earlier on the trip. And so we're traveling through some of the most romantic cities out there, and so in the world, and so Paris, Santorini, Venice, a lot of places where people propose, people get married, have destination weddings and things like that. But I think that's what she was expecting, and actually proposed in Dubai, which was in the middle of our trip. And then after I proposed, it was funny because we were chatting. She was like, I was getting ready every single day when we're going through Paris, we're going through Santorini, we're going through Venice, and you never proposed. And then when I proposed in Dubai, caught her off guard, and she was pretty surprised that I proposed in the middle of the desert at Al Mahal in Dubai. Did
you arrange it through the hotel?
I did. It's I contacted the hotel and asked them, or it's oh, do you have any special arrangements? I'm planning to propose to my for now fiance, and they respond back. They were very nice, and so it's the staff and the service at Al Mahal is really awesome. But yeah, they replied back and said that, oh yeah, we have these packages, and if you're interested in these packages, you can take a look at them. And so I was looking through this PDF with all the packages, and they're $800, $900, $600. And I was like, I think I'll pass. And the great thing about Al Mahal is that excursions and adventures are included. And so one of them is that they'll take you out into the middle of the desert. They have champagne and then also beer as well. And you can watch sunset. And so you you take an SUV out there, or you can ride on camelback out to the middle of the desert. And so you can wander out in the middle of the desert on your own and do whatever you want, find your own private place. And that's how I did it. I did it on a free excursion out into the middle of the desert with free champagne and free beer, and kind of proposed out in the middle of the desert during sunset. And I don't think any of the people with us, because they take you out there in a group. And so you can walk out as far as you want and stuff like that. And I don't think anybody in our group realized that I proposed, which is funny, but yeah, I did the free method, which I think she still really liked, and it was totally worth it.
Nice. Congratulations. And you guys are planning another one of these.
Yeah, hopefully towards the middle of 2021. So we're taking it a little easier this time around, because the last time we tried to hit as many destinations as we can and spent 2 or 3 days. And so this time around, we're taking it a little bit easier and kind of going the opposite way. And so last time we went across the Atlantic first. This time we're going across the Pacific first. And so the opposite way around. And so staying longer, fewer cities, but staying longer in these cities. And so we always have to make a stop in Japan because we like Japan a lot. And so we're always stopping in Japan. We're going down to Taiwan for a couple of days, and then down to Singapore, and then from Singapore over to Croatia, and then from Croatia to Portugal for a couple of days, and then back home.
Nice. And this is still the 125,000 miles?
Yeah, still the 125,000 American Express points transferred to ANA points, to ANA miles to take this trip. Yep, 3 weeks, business class, all the way around. Hello Kitty plane from I think Japan to Taiwan, and that'll be fun. And then kind of a couple fun products, I think we're flying from Singapore to with a layover in Istanbul on Turkish Airways, and so that'd be cool. And yeah.
Nice. I love Eva Airways. We have flown on that Hello Kitty flight. I think it was from Bali to Taiwan for us. And my husband proceeded to ask me if that's how I got discounted tickets, was on the children's flight, because there were a lot of children on our flight. It It is a really cute experience to go on these different themed flights. What has been your strategy for earning all of the points this time around?
This time around, it's just Amex points from sign-up bonuses and mostly the Amex Gold. 4 times points is just easy to rack up points. I think this time around, we're staying in a couple Airbnbs and then some Hyatt hotels, transferring Chase points to Hyatt. And recently signed up for the 80,000 Chase Sapphire Preferred. And so going to be using those points towards hotels for the trip.
Yeah, I guess that begs the question, if the pandemic is still around, how refundable are these points? What happens if one of the segments falls through? Then
that's a good question. I guess we'll both find out. Yeah, I have no idea. And so I'm hoping that it doesn't happen, but preparing for the worst, which most likely ANA is pretty nice about these things. And so maybe rescheduling the entire trip. I mean, if one leg doesn't work out, then rescheduling the entire trip would most likely happen, because I don't know, it's like I spent so much time to put together the perfect itinerary. And in my mind, there's nothing that would be as good as the itinerary that I put together. And just, there's no alternative to swap out just one leg. It's going to have to get the whole thing has to be rescheduled.
do they refund you the points? Like you can get the points back?
Oh, definitely not. Yeah, they're stuck in ANA for sure. And there's no way of getting those back to American Express. But I don't mind. I mean, ANA is, we always, that's primarily where we use our American Express points, is the ANA around the world trips. And so, yeah, if one leg does get canceled, I don't mind getting the ANA miles back into the account.
Because it's always going to be 125,000 per person around the world. It's not, oh, we have to rebook the thing and all of the points prices change, because it's still the set price. You just have to redo the itinerary.
Yeah, the way I look at it, it's like kind of like a buffet of flights. As long as it's Star Alliance and there's availability, then 125,000 points can pretty much get you anywhere around the world. There's some rules that you have to follow, but yeah, essentially it's always going to be 125,000 ANA miles to do this around the world trip.
And that doesn't take a lot. It's just 2, maybe 3 credit card sign-up bonuses to get you 125,000.
Yep. Yeah, you can definitely do it for a lot less in economy. And if you fly less miles around the world, then you can do it for even fewer points too. You can do it for 100,000 points. But just the specific itinerary that I picked, it falls into the 125,000 ANA miles bracket.
Very cool. I'm sure after listening to this episode, a lot of people are going to be Googling, I want to go around the world. How do I take off 3 weeks off of work and then book all of these points and miles? Thank you so much, Max. If you had to sum up all of your travel hacking knowledge that you've gotten over the years into one line for an Instagram graphic,
my one line piece of advice would be, the more you know, the further you travel. And so this is mainly because I think travel hacking is pretty much based off of how much information you know, because the more information you know, if you know that you can redeem points for XYZ and fly here and there's a sweet spot in this award chart, then you're more likely to book it and know about it and travel that way. And so, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm always kind of going through my Twitter feed and kind of reading those headlines, because I want to know what deals are out there. I want to know what changes happened, or what airline changes, or what points program has changed, so I can at least know in the back of my mind that if I run into that and need more information, or if I run into a situation where I need more information, then I can go back to it and kind of study a little bit more. And I mean, I think information is power when it comes to travel hacking. And if you know that there's a sign up bonus out there that can get you to Spain for 68,000 points rather than spending 120,000 points on United, then you're already winning. And so, yeah, the more you know, the more you'll travel and the further you'll travel.
Perfect. And one of the best ways to get more information so that you can know more, so that you can travel more, is by learning from other people, the people we have on this podcast, and then all of our friends that we recommend as well. So for everybody listening today, can you give a travel hacking shout out to a friend who you think has awesome travel?
You should check out SWA Travel Tips. And so it's an account mostly on Southwest, but Southwest has its different quirks and different hacks and stuff like that, like Companion Pass and things. And so it's a great account to follow if you like Southwest, but if you DM him or comment on any of his stuff, he's very knowledgeable. on miles and points. And I have fun chatting with him. And he runs a great Southwest travel hack account. You can find me on Instagram, and mostly it's just only on Instagram right now. And so maybe hopefully one day a website. But yeah, on Instagram at Max Miles and Points. Max Miles Points. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Max, again for recording this with me a second time. You're so nice. And I'm sure everybody will get so much value
of course.
Out of this episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards or other tools mentioned on today's call piqued your interest, please use the links in the show notes to apply or to learn more about any of the cards. Commissions earned from these signups help to support the podcast. Additionally, the single best travel hack I can recommend is finding friends who can show you about even more travel hacks, and it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend. And if you would like to meet even more travel hacking friends, come join one of our travel hanging hangouts. We discuss behind the scenes tips, celebrate each other's wins, and mostly just enjoy being around other people who enjoy this hobby just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, just head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts and sign up to be on the invite list. See you there, take care, and happy travels.